Hi, I'm Sashwati Sarkar and you're watching The Times of India. Today, we are exploring the evolving world of international education, from choosing the right curriculum to preparing students for global classrooms. With growing competition among universities worldwide, how do Indian schools equip students with the skills needed to thrive beyond borders? In today's conversation, we'll discuss how international curricula like CAIE and IB are redefining global citizenship and what Indian schools can do to nurture future-ready students. Joining me is Rupa Chakravarti, Director of Sun City World School, an educationist with extensive experience in curriculum development. Rupa's expertise spans across international platforms with presentations in countries like the USA, UK, Australia and Japan. Thanks a lot, Rupa, for joining us today in this conversation. I'm sure the discussion that we are going to have here, or rather I should call it a freewheeling chat, will not only enlighten students about their international education aspirations, but also about many other facets of learning and knowledge. Let's start. So you offer both CAIE and IB diploma curricula at Sun City.
Yes, we do.
It's a rare offering. And how do you help students pick the right curriculum that supports their global university goals?
So I would like to begin by saying that the focus shouldn't only be about global university, it should be on learning.
Right.
So when we look at a child, we see how the child learns, because every child learns differently. And when we look at whether it's a visual, an auditory or a kinesthetic child, accordingly the child is allotted or suggested that they go into that kind of curriculum. As rightly said by Cambridge, that develop skills and not just give them the content, you know. So I think that is what is done in CAIE and in IBDP, where they develop a lot of skills.
If you could give a few examples, please.
So let's look at the core that IB offers. The core is something that is not offered elsewhere. Subjects are there in every board, whether it be national board or international board. But when you look at the core, it has three things which is not there, which is the CAS, right, which is the creativity, action and service. And then we have EE, which is the extended essay, and we have TOK, which is the theory of knowledge. Theory of knowledge is unique. There are ways of research that are done, but theory of knowledge is more about epistemology, about how to understand what is knowledge, how you glean knowledge, etc., you know, which is a very unique way. And since I have taught TOK, I understand the nuances that have kind of formed the base of this particular core component of IBDP especially.
So you were talking about TOK, theory of knowledge, and also there is this global perspectives in IB.
Yes.
So TOK is in Cambridge, TOK is in IB and global perspectives is in Cambridge, right?
Yes.
How do these aspects help students in their future research work and also while they apply for global colleges in writing their applications or maybe making their SOPs or essays stand out?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that, because you see what happens with theory of knowledge. You have to get into various aspects of learning, which is also TOK with other subjects.
Okay.
TOK with concepts, which is another way of learning TOK. In concepts, you would have claims, you would have perspectives, you know. So it gives you that wide angle look of what a person says or what a person does. Now, global perspective is about all that is going on in the globe, in the world right now.
Right.
So it is not just general knowledge, it is about taking a topic and researching on it. Taking a case study and trying to understand, analyze it and understand why that particular situation has arisen, and what could be solutions to ensure that that situation is curbed or is absolutely mitigated. So I think that is something which is so important, because like they say in management, you know, if you bring a problem, you are the problem if you don't bring the solution, you know. So
Right.
that is why it is so imperative that you have things like TOK, global perspective. So let's say with how the economy is, then the children would be reading the case studies, understanding, analyzing that, and then trying to find their solution from their perspective to those problems which are of global perspective.
Right. So it not only helps them develop critical thinking, but
Absolutely.
fine-tune them also. I mean, it seems quite deep, like, you know, in the
Yes.
way. Okay, that's really great to hear. So, you know, we hear a lot of international institutes and universities say that Indian students are great academics, but they fall a little short when it comes to critical thinking. Do you, I mean, how do the Indian boards, like, you know, be it CBSE, ICSE, or any other state board, compare with IB and Cambridge when it comes to bridging this, you know, thinking gap?
You see, what has happened in the last few years, CBSE and ICSE to a great extent, I'll speak with more authority about CBSE because I do some of the work with them. They are changing. And when they are changing, they are trying to kind of cover the gap which was found to be existing.
Right.
And that is why the co-scholastic and scholastic from, I would say, 2003 that we started working towards. The endeavor was how to bridge this gap and ensure that the children are going to be a holistic persona rather than just academic focused. So in 2009 is when we had a change in the system. 2009-10, and there was a lot of training involved, and CCE came in, you know.
Right.
And that was a step towards this. And also how you teach. Because like I said, a child could be learning visually or auditory or kinesthetics, and it's called VAC. So are we looking at ensuring that the child is getting the VAC? There's also a T, which is tactile, but mostly it is VAK. And because they say that if I can't learn the way you teach me the way I learn.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
So that is the bridging that's happening at the moment. And of course, Cambridge being so old an institution, they are way ahead. And IB has also given a very thoughtful curriculum to the world. And I think with CBSE and ICSE, they are in the process
of catching up.
Absolutely.
CBSE is also working on its global curriculum, right?
Yes, it is working on its global curriculum, and hopefully it should be there soon by 2000.
So if there is any insight on this, if you would like to share, is the global curriculum aligned to the syllabus of global universities or any global course for that matter?
So it's a work in progress at the moment, and it's being worked upon backwards. That what are the particular the things that universities look at. What would be a profile they would look at for a child, you know? And seeing that, what they require and how they fill up all their forms, etc. They are working backwards to ensure that the curriculum is wholesome enough to kind of grapple this problem where the gaps are.
So there's a growing pressure on students to build well-rounded profiles with leadership, community work, and internships, and other other skills which global universities prioritize a lot. But with the board exams being so demanding, is it becoming too much too soon? Or how should they actually balance both? If a student's goal is international education, while he is studying here in maybe a CBSE board or a state board, how should he balance the pressure of board exams alongside the requirement or necessity of building a well-rounded profile with necessary skills like leadership, community work and extracurricular activities?
So I think at Sun City the children have worked out a very beautiful timetable for themselves.
Okay.
I feel happy to see that, because what they do, they have a consistent plan throughout the year. So when you have a consistent and you sustain that plan, you don't feel the pressure of the boards as much as you would if you did last minute studies. Having said that, so how do they do it? They space it out. So when there's summer holidays, you know, they would do certain projects.
Right.
We also have something called the apprenticeship program.
Apprenticeship?
Apprenticeship.
Apprenticeship, okay.
So those are the summer jobs that they go for 2 weeks.
Oh.
Just before the summer holidays begin. We also have entrepreneurial ventures. That is that suppose you're a student in our school and you have an idea that you want to start an entrepreneurial venture, then you can start it and you sustain it for 3-4 months or 5 months, and then you present it to us, and if we feel it has some potential, then we will also give you money to enlarge your company, you know. And we've done it twice thus far in the last 7-8 years, and I feel happy to say that some of the global awards like Lady Diana Award for social entrepreneurship or empowerment, also from the Parmarika Award, our children have been felicitated with the Parmarika Award. So I think this is how it should be planned. It should be a well-rounded timetable that the students plan out, you know. And one thing which is very, very important is international mindedness. If you do not have that international mindedness, even if you write a very good profile, the colleges are so adept at it that they see through your, you know, whatever you fill into your forms, etc. Right. So that should be inculcated in the students right from childhood. You cannot do it at the nth hour.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with you on this, because that mindset has to develop at a time when students kids are more ready to accept new things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So global classrooms come with their own set of norms. There the student-teacher relationship is more dynamic and informal, and there are many other changes that any international student, including Indians, face in those classrooms. And we can say that it's sort of there's an invisible curriculum while it comes to adjusting to a very new environment. True. How can schools help students, be ready for this cultural shift?
It's a very pertinent question, because that is the biggest problem children face, especially those who go from the interiors.
Right.
When they reach there, they have a very big, I won't call cultural shock, but they are not able to understand why a certain atmosphere or environment exists. Because they have not been exposed to such an environment earlier, and that stems from the fact how to adjust with people from different cultures, and how to understand and respect people for what they denote. And also, I think to a great extent, the learning which they go with, sometimes in some of the more remote places where it's a lot of rote, they are not able to understand why they have to adapt to this kind of more open, ways of learning, and also to be able to understand open-ended questions which elicit answers which are very different.
Right.
From close-ended.
From a very definitive answer.
Absolutely.
2 + 2 = 4 kinds.
Exactly.
So that liberalized approach may become, though it could be healthier, but it can be a trouble for people who are not, for students who are not used to that kind of So how can schools help them develop that?
That is where the international mindedness, if it is imbibed in them from a young age, and it is even embedded in a small thing like the food you eat. So in schools, if they say, okay, today we are going to from next week have different kinds of cuisines, just for
Right.
1 week. Right?
Yeah,
Parents
that's
would
an
be
exposure itself.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
an exposure, and I know parents are all working nowadays, so it may be a little difficult for them to kind of cater to such requests from the school. But these are things which will actually make them more liberal, more open-minded, and adaptive.
More tolerant to differences.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right, right. In your experience, what do the returning alumni say that they wish they knew before going abroad?
I think one of the biggest hindrance or the biggest problem they face is loneliness, because they have not been able to take to that culture, take to that way of learning, where you may be in a lecture of 200 students, and if you don't have that rigor and you are not submitting your task by the deadline that is set, we know that some of these brilliant universities or some of the very, very renowned universities, they are very hardcore and very determined as to how their whole program should run. And if you don't adhere to the way they are doing, sometimes that can be detrimental for a child's progress.
Absolutely.
And that is something they are not able to understand. Sometimes it's also about accents. It is about culture to an extent, but now of course there is a lot more global exposure because of social media, etc. So, and AI coming in a big way.
AI is changing
yes,
the landscapes in so many fields.
yes. So I think now it will be easier, and I find it a lot more children who wish to go abroad are tolerant, because they realize that if they want something, they have to change something in themselves. So that transition is happening, and they do understand, because there's a wider circle of things that's happening. Your circle of influence, which was very limited earlier, has now become much more broader, and your influence goes beyond because of social media.
Would you like to share any personal anecdote where maybe a student has come back from abroad and told you, ma'am, I wish I knew this before? Like any personal anecdote that you would like to share?
I would talk about a teacher, in fact, whose son had gone, and the loneliness that he felt because he had not adapted or not developed an international mindedness which would have helped him to kind of understand other people. So he was grappling with trying to change himself when there was nobody around to support him, and that led to a lot of mental pain and anxiety, stress, and the boy had to come back. And I think that is something, as parents, we should also teach our children. I must tell you one anecdote which happened with me. You know how we Indian mothers are. And my son, who was in Stephens doing economics, went to Cambridge. And whilst there was this talk going on with one of his professors, I said, he's a little stressed during exams, so you'll have to help him. So I got a very curt answer that here everybody takes care of themselves. And I will never forget that curtness in the voice, and a very matter-of-fact voice telling me that every child is to be independent and they have to fend for themselves.
True. So we are coming to the final question. So what would be your vision for schools to help students become global citizens rather than just international students?
A lot of exposure. Again,
How can schools, like if you could, wrap up in say 5 to 6 points, what actions should schools take to make this happen, to make an aspiring international student become a global citizen in the future?
So I think I'll just quickly narrate a few things that we do.
Yeah.
Beginning on the premise that build the child's curiosity. If you build a child's curiosity, learning becomes so easy. We have a technical jargon in the education field which is called heutagogy, which is self-directed learning.
Oh.
So when you become a self-directed learner due to curiosity, then your learning aspect is taken care of. To how to kind of interact with people from other countries. So we have, like in Sun City, we have exchange programs with 5 countries at the moment. So when they come and when they go, like for example, last year we had the French students come to us.
Okay, exchange programs.
Exchange programs. Our children went to Spain. Then we had the Japanese students come in August. Our children went in November. They see what the world is. It's such a varied and wide world. And they realize that they shouldn't just be cooped up in their little world, and they have to broaden their horizon to encompass all of that they see. So that's another thing that you do. Learning of languages, in schools, which of course CBSE, ICSE, they also encourage that you learn different languages. That again, to give exposure to that, the schools should encourage their children to go. Also to go for international competitions, like there's the World Scholars Cup that happens, Formula 1 for schools that happens, right? MUN, the
Expose students to more international competitions.
Yes. And of course, keep the ethos and ethics of being an Indian. So on that route of being an Indian, the heritage of being an Indian, spread your wings and fly out into the world. That's what I would say in reply to your last question.
Thanks a lot for such an enlightening session. I'm sure our viewers will learn a lot in terms of global curriculum, how they can sharpen their focus if their intention is to go abroad, and a lot more. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you so much.